Hey Pleiadian Starseeds, welcome to Starseed Energetics. My name is Bora and I'm going to be reading your July energy. Let's get started. Immediate message that I get for you is that you are having a massive geolocational influences. So many of you are going to be traveling to different locations where you're going to be unlocking the geographical energetic grid of a particular significant cross-section in our collective earth. So if you are drawn to specific cities or locations and you're not really sure why, just go for it. There's reasons that you can't comprehend possibly. Explore other realms. Absolutely. What I was just saying, but just on a physical level. Exploring other realms in the physical. You're encouraged to visit new cities. You're encouraged to visit new sites. And they don't have to be like famous places. They can just be, you know, a park that you've never been to in the neighborhood. How do you know what trees are connected with which trees and how they communicate? You know? Find and hold your own power. Bring peace to troubled waters. Clarification is needed. Embody ancient wisdom. Explore other realms. Find and hold your own power. Magic is alive. It looks like you are transmuting timelines and memories that have been extremely painful. And this could do a lot. Wow, what is this turquoise? Lemuria? These could have a lot to do with your Lemurian timelines. Connect with Mount Shasta, where there's Telos. You don't have to actually go there. It'd be great if you did, but wherever you are in the world, you can intend to connect with the consciousness grid of a sacred place, and you can invoke it, just like how you can read into different star systems, right? So invoke the location of Telos, which is Mount Shasta, and intend to connect with that grid. You're transmuting a lot of timelines from your lives that you had in Lemuria. And somehow, if you get called to visit a nature in your environment or any city in your neighborhood, it would have a magnetic grid resonance with this Mount Shasta. So that's what you're encouraged to do. And this is like literally a parallel life. If you look at this, like, I never even realized that these cards existed together, but look at the parallel between the two men. It's just the parallel life, but just in a different setting, in a different context. So this is actually a parallel life that is running with yours right now, that you're healing both of the anchor points from this pocket of time, which is translated as July 2019 to your conscious mind. But what's happening is resolving different energies here, and you're finding empowerment from a situation where your inner child, or this childhood, you have a very painful memory that also is connected with this parallel timeline. So whichever timeline this is also has that traumatic anchor point in its past life, or in its memory that is also stemming from a past life. You're healing those. For some of you, this past life has to do with Tibetan monk, maybe getting harmed in that point in time and space from negative astral beings, but I'm not going to go into this black hole. So you're bringing peace to both of these timelines, your current one and the parallel one. And there is this really massive despair. A lot of it has to do with your current life, your resonance with society, obviously, but like there's key people in your life who just didn't give you the validation of being entitled to your own experience or power. Empowerment is a huge theme here, because in this life, people's devaluation of your emotions, in a lot of cases, some of you guys and girls were not able to fully own your own emotions because you were heavily conditioned to view them as weaknesses, or as weaknesses, so that the emotions don't store in yourselves as heavy voltage. And even if you think you're so healed, right? Because a lot of spiritual people, they can fall into this whole shit about like, I'm done healing. Like, okay, that's a paradigm that you do have access to and that you are living in on a certain level, but like a lot of you are at a place where you're not actually whole, but you are tricking yourself by how much you've done the inner work, or how much you've done the inner child work, or like whatever, all the healing work that you've done. And that's true, you are very healed. However, there's still aspects of yourself that is relentlessly wounded. Who are you kidding? Like, I mean, if you just look at the collective society now, it is a reflection of your internal space. And from this point of me recording this video in this current time, the society has a lot of really messed up things going on. So there's definitely things that we can all heal within. It's fine to redeem yourself whole in a certain context, from a certain context, but in this context you have a lot to still tend to and like not neglect. I hope this makes sense, because I don't want to sound contradicting, that sometimes I'll say there is no more healing required, you are already whole, you are already absolute. But there's also different perspectives of looking at that same truth, which is that you still need healing. Okay, only some of you will probably understand what I'm saying, but like if you don't, that's okay. This is a Pleiadian reading, am I right? Yes. Inner child work, look at that. There's a lot of inner child work being done, and this is the last chapter of that, I can promise you. There's just the parallel levels of messages about your inner child. Somebody traumatized you when you were a kid by just being themselves, and it's not something that you can like say that it was terrifying to a degree where, you know, a lot of things happen in current society, like a lot of children have terrible lives that we can't, like maybe you didn't have like a terrifying life as like a refugee or a victim of abuse, but still, if you're coming from a high density memory complex straight to humanity, people's normal lives can traumatize you. How they act as a normal functioning family may traumatize you, not from a place of comparison, but just from the sheer fact that it's shocking. It's a culture shock. So a lot of you are just healing that trauma of the culture shock that you experienced when you were born until you are now. And you have a full right to feel that. And if you ever felt like you didn't have, you know, you didn't have a bad childhood, so you can't be healing it. So a lot of you are in that place, but you have to give yourself credit for the emotions that you feel, if you feel like your childhood was just like terrifying, even if nothing happened. Because for a lot of you guys who are listening, like, that's literally what I see. It's like you feel like you can't complain about your childhood, or that you can't heal your childhood, or the moments of your childhood, the years of your childhood that was surprisingly normal. It was still traumatizing because of humanity. So allow yourself to process those emotions, which is really interesting, because maybe you forgave the timelines that were actually traumatizing, but then you're not processing the seemingly normal ones because you thought there's nothing to transmute, but there is. Okay, that's a very interesting reading. But that's the end of this whole thing. This despair that you felt. Actually, the remnants of forgiveness was the moments that you felt despair when there shouldn't have been any excuses for despair. How deep is that? I think that applies to me too, totally. But on a parallel life, I think it was a lot more difficult. I mean, part of high density life, part of its pain can be that there's not a lot of acceleration in the journey. There's not a lot of movement. So any position can get super stagnant. If it's a little bit distorted, it's a major distortion. Anyway, last two cards from a different deck. The Great Crystal. Did I just say something about crystal technology? The Great Crystal. Cooperation. And unicorns. Look at the source of your inner power. Don't underestimate yourself. Every thought, word, and action radiates an energy towards others and draws situations to you. Make sure your aim's for the highest good. Talks about how magnified your power is right now. And everything is manifesting perfectly. To an uncanny degree now at this point in your evolution. And it's just going to get more and more pristine from there. Constantly recalibrate your intent to service for the highest good, just to make sure that there's no stagnant egoic parallels running, because there can be blind spots. And aim for cooperation and sharing. Instead of asking yourself what's the best outcome for me, simply ask what's the best outcome for all. Because the answer is the same, but it's just a different energy in which it manifests. So you're manifesting it anyway, but you can be inclusive of unity, which would heighten the amplification of the bandwidth of frequencies that are coming as a result of your every thought, action, and deed. Then you have unicorns, which is a fifth dimensional unicorn. I've seen unicorns with my physical eyes. I don't really know how to call it, but there's a time when you're seeing through your third eye, and then there's a time when you're seeing with your physical eyes, and then there's a time where it's like blended. So literally what you see in the physical reality is also in cooperation with your pineal gland. But I've seen a unicorn in that state of vision in a park. It was in the middle of the night, like probably like 2 in the morning or 3 or even 4 in the morning. Nobody was there. So this actually is the calling that unicorns want to connect with you, and they literally exist. They are a 5th dimensional animal, 6th dimensional and 7th dimensional. They go all the way up to 7th dimension. That energy literally wants to connect with you. And it's like psychological warfare, where they make certain things seem like so fictional, so you think it's ridiculous. They do that with extraterrestrials. The government does that. Like the mass media does that. But the same thing happens with unicorns, where unicorns are really real, but people think it's like a joke. But they're so real. Like, they're one of the only interdimensional creatures that I've seen with my physical eyes. Most likely, whatever project that you want to work on, that you are going to work on in the future, will channel some of their energy. So, yeah. That was the end of your reading, Pleiadians. I actually have one more message I want to leave you with, the rune card. 2, knowing deterioration to the birth of the new. Boundless resources of released illusions. So you're going through a cycle of deterioration, like literally is going to feel like your wounds are rotting. Like, okay, so you know when people get shot and they have to save the people, and they have to pull out the bullet. I would say that this month is kind of like pulling out this bullet. So it's painful, but it's like so much better for the whole picture. So you have some kind of a painful ending that you're going to be experiencing. Still very graceful, and you still embody this tons of wisdom. And you're stepping into this like boundless resources that the illusions, but I think the programming out of the illusion itself is painful for you, but like it's literally a new life. So like as you're going through this end cycle, you also know that how auspicious this is. That's it. You want to work with me one-on-one, I work in divine timing, so no linear time projections, but if you're still interested, my link is in the description. Love you guys.